Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Hello and welcome. January 21st, the month is almost over. And so today, let me prep you already. We're going to go a little deep, so today's message might be a little longer than you're accustomed to. So if at some point you feel the need to get up and walk away, just know that the recording will be available for you to come back to and finish off if you should need to leave. just so you know. So today we are talking about it's a new life. It's a new life. How many of you raise your hand if you are familiar with Sesame Street? There used to be a song, or there may still be a song on Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the others. One of these things doesn't belong here. Can you tell me which one? Now, taking that into account, something doesn't belong here. Something is not like the others. So when we think of today's general concept, as you read through this, as we go through this, see if you can identify what Reverend Ray would say doesn't really belong here. Even though intention setting is powerful, the universe has a tendency to laugh at our plans. Life can seem to get in the way of our dreams. How do we bring a grand rising into the rest of our lives beyond the disappointment, discomfort, and perceived failure? By staying present and trusting the divine. Every challenge being thrown at us is designed to shape us into the people we are meant to become. Some challenges may feel insurmountable. The faith that we bring to those challenges helps to build a faith muscle that allows us to overcome anything. Faith turns any impossible situation into a triumph. As we bring the energy of a grand rising into our lives, let's remember that Spirit is by our side throughout the journey, always conspiring in our favor. Were you able to pick it out? If not, here it is. And I want you to just pause and reflect on this. Why did I specifically highlight these aspects? We're going to talk about, not specifically line by line, but we're going to talk about the general concept. The universe has a tendency to laugh at our plans. Every challenge being thrown, designed to shape us, meant to become the people we are meant to be, meant by who's deciding this meant, etc. So if you are ready to dive deep, let us go. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and literally right around the corner from the family home is this church, St. Peter's and Paul's, or St. Peter and Paul's. If you're familiar with the movie Dogma, this is the church that was featured in that film. Now, these images come from a time when I lived in Pittsburgh, and the church was in pretty good condition, still being used as a church. And as time went by, the church changed. Now, in looking at this, let us use this as sort of a metaphor, an analogy for new thought. New thought. It's functioning, it's operational, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And yet, because it does not evolve, what happens as time goes by is the very structures of it begin to crumble. Now, overall, you can look at it and tell, oh, that's new thought. Oh, that's a church. But when you enter into it and you realize that it's no longer applicable, relevant, or functional, you realize that, oh no, this is actually old new thought. And the concept of a universe laughing at us, God laughing at us, God choosing or destining us for or testing us, all of it. It's an old new thought concept because it still anthropomorphizes God. Joel Goldsmith offers us, just as we must rise above the traditional material concept of God and prayer, so we must overcome the material concept of ourselves and identify ourselves with God. Breathe, because I got a couple of questions. How full of yourself are you? We're going to come back to this specific question in a moment. But how full of yourself are you? What does that mean to you? What does that look like for you? Well, what about how full of love are you? What does it mean to be full of love? Or I'm full to a 50% capacity of love. What does that mean for you? What does it look like in life as a practice? What about how full of joy are you? Do you feel joy on a daily basis? What is joy? What is the difference between being joyful and being happy? What's the difference for you? Doesn't matter what the dictionary says in this moment right now. What does it mean for you to feel joy? For you to feel happiness? What does that mean? Well, what about the question of how full of God are you? What does that look like? Well, what about the question of how fully aware of God as you are you? God being all there is, then it must be what you are. And as Goldsmith said, it's this changing our concept, our relationship with the awareness of God as what we are. So let's revisit that initial question by thinking about how full of yourself are you? Well, Max says when you're full of yourself, God can't fill you. But when you empty yourself, God has a useful vessel. I understand what he's saying, having my background being traditional Christian fundamentalism. I understand what he's saying. He used to believe that. And in many ways, what we speak of in New Thought even today mirrors this concept. And yet, what I want to invite us into today is the idea that when you are full of your capital S self, which is the self, you are actually in recognition that you are and have always been full of God. The capital S self is God. And when you are full of the self, your true self, you are full of God. Not simply as a vessel. God is not in you. God is all that you are. God is your body. God is your breath. God is your blood. God is your bones. God is all of it. It is the soul and the spirit and the mind. It is all that you are. So, not simply as a vessel, but God as that which is the fullness of you, period. Let's move into a truly new thought where we recognize and we understand this and we live from this awareness. Let's stop talking about God as if God is separate from us or can be removed from us or us moved from or separated from it. We can't. Jim Detmer, and Diane Chapman, and Kaylee Werner Klemp say, what if the great opportunity of life isn't in trying to get the world to be a certain way, but in learning from whatever the world gives us? I understand what they're saying, and yet, what if the great opportunity of life isn't in trying to get the world to be a certain way? Well, isn't that what equity, justice, liberation, isn't that what it is? We want the world, a world that works for all, to be a certain way, a way that actually works for all of creation, all of nature, all of the animals, all of the people, a way that actually works in a life affirming and healthy, holistic manner. Not simply learning from whatever the world, key word there, whatever the world gives us. Because by that token, world, are we talking about what the earth gives us? Because as the earth says, don't confuse me as the world with humanity as the world. We operate in two vastly different ways. And here we go into for linguistic convenience, what are we referring to? So let's clarify. The earth, the world, the earth. I give you water and air. The world, the collective consciousness of humanity, they give you water and air pollution. See the distinction? The earth, the world upon which we live, gives us water and gives us air. The world, which is humanity and the collective consciousness, gives us water pollution and air pollution. Note the distinction. Again, the world, the earth, I give you plants and elements, minerals. They give you capitalistic driven destruction of natural resources. Note the distinction. Again, I give you a home. They claim ownership of the land and charge you rent to live here. So when we're talking about what the world is giving us, what world are they referring to? Because in that context, we are the world, as you recognize from this song. We are the world. So is the world the earth? That is one aspect. That's not what they're talking about. So let's clarify the distinction. The world that is giving us or throwing things at us, et cetera, we are it. We, the world, created slavery. We, the world, created oppression based on gender. We, the world, burned women for witchcraft. We, the world, created ableism, racism. We, the world, deny people health care because they can't afford it. There's not enough money. We, the world, did that and continue to do so. So maybe it's time that we, the world, change we, the world. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There is a choice that we are making, and we are saving all of our lives. It's true. We will make a better day. You and me. So it's not simply about what if the great opportunity of life isn't in, that's not learning from whatever the collective consciousness gives us. I understand what they're saying once again, but no. How about we remix? What if the great opportunity of life is in our ability to work in synergistic cooperation with the earth and to create laws, policies, and systems that support life with equity, justice, and freedom? Now let's go back for a second to this idea of work, the ability to work. I'm not talking about a checklist of to do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the same way that my organs, my body work to support life. I'm talking operation. What if the great opportunity of our life is in our ability to engage in the processes of synergistic cooperation, etc.? So breathe and take that in. because this is inviting us into a completely different paradigm of thinking and being in the world. And speaking of being, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But for now, according to Mark Nepo, being, I just said, and becoming take time. And this commitment to stay open is at the very core of what it means to be a person. Being and becoming. Being and becoming. Well, what immediately comes to my mind is good old Shakespeare. To be or not to be, that is the question. Now, in reference to this, I can read the full or look it up online, the speech given within this play. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, right? And on and on. Now, in the grand scope of this soliloquy, Hamlet is debating whether or not to take someone's life. For us, I want us to focus on the idea of to be aware that I am the living embodiment of that which is the universe, or not to be in awareness of that. That is the question. To be full of that which is love and life and joy, or not to be. That is the question. To live in recognition and applicable awareness, or not to be. That is the question. And oftentimes, in the grand scope of things, when we talk about be or to be or being, the terms get so interwoven, new word, that we're not sure what exactly that means. So, be is to exist. To be is a future related thing. Right now, be, the be that I am. I exist, I live as, we'll say, human, for the sake of conversation right now. To be, I'm going to go to college so that I get to be an art teacher. I'm going to go through prac training so that I get to be a licensed practitioner. It is a future, later, expectant thing versus the right here and right now. So what then comes up is this idea of, well, wait, pause. Because what we often do is we get so caught up that we are so focused on the to being rather than being. We are so busy doing that we lose track of our being. And we've heard this phrase multiple times referencing, are we human doings or human beings? Well, to a certain degree, we are human beings who do things. I am a human being who is doing something called sitting, called speaking. But when I get so focused on the doing, the speaking, the sitting, the working, the planning, that I have forgotten to come back to the very essence of what am I being? I am being an expression of God. Now, which is more important? The being or the doing? And that might be a trick question. Might be. First Lady Michelle Obama says, when we are given a kind start, when another person greets us with unfettered gladness, I love that word, unfettered gladness, or trusts our ability to succeed, it can, and often does, have a lasting, life affirming, life lifting sort of effect. Kindness. What does it mean to be kind? In what ways can we be more kind? In what ways can we express more kindness? In what ways can we be the embodiment of kindness to such a degree that the kind, being kindness, and doing kind acts or acts of kindness, random acts of kindness, conscious, deliberate acts of kindness merge into to such a degree where I am able to speak and converse with you, and breathing happens naturally. I am able to speak and converse with you, and heartbeat naturally. Can we move into a space of walking through the subway, walking through the supermarket, and kindness happens naturally? We don't even have to think about it. It's a natural byproduct of life. What life does when life is moving and operating together. All is one. Can we do that? Are we willing to do that? Because ultimately, the invitation is, are we willing to love? Are we willing to love so powerfully, to be the embodiment of love so powerfully that we live, move, and have our beingness in a seamless manner, where there is no separation between us and the divine. There is only the divine as us, one and the same. Breathe. And remember that love, loving kindness, compassion are good for the one who is being it, who is offering it, who is sharing it. It is good for your mind. It is good for your body. It is good for your brain. It is good for your spirit. Being kindness, being it, is good for you. And the more we plant the seeds of, sowing the seeds of kindness, the more we create the vast harvest for others to also feel and to share, to operate and to be the very embodiment of kindness. Paula Ferris says, when we leave this world, what will be when we leave this world, what will be remembered is the way we loved God and loved others. Our vocations and careers are simply the mechanism, the conduit for how we do that. Yes, I agree. And still, I'm going to remix. When we leave this world, what will be remembered is the way we loved God in the ways we loved others as God. Pause. Recognizing that God is all there is, the way in which I honor the tree is how I love and honor God. The way I honor anything in nature is the way I honor and recognize God. The way I love and honor you is the way that I love and honor God. The way that I love and honor myself is the way that I love and honor God. So when we leave this world, what will be remembered is the way in which we recognize God in, through, and as each other, honored it in, through, and as each other, celebrated it in, through, and as each other, loved it in, through, and as each other. And our vocations, our careers, the acts of service, our activities of sharing, they are the mechanism, the conduit for how we do this. Teacher, how does the teacher love, honor, celebrate? How does the lawyer love, honor, celebrate? How does the politician love, honor, celebrate? How does the mail carrier love, honor, and celebrate? How does the recycling folks that come around, the garbage disposal folks that come around, love, honor, cherish, celebrate? See, it doesn't matter what the vocation is. If there is even a vocation, maybe I've retired. Maybe I am one of the unhoused. Doesn't matter. We still get to participate in this thing called life, no matter what it is. Because once again, it's not necessarily about what we do in terms of the checklist of capitalism, the checklist of, how am I honoring, loving, and serving all of creation, moment by moment? Breathe. Octavia Butler says, we do not worship God. We perceive and attend God. We learn from God. And remember, God is all of us. We learn from, and that is a choice. We learn from God. With forethought and work, we shape God. And in the end, we yield to God. All of it is a cooperative, collaborative, synergistic dance. God with God, as God, for God, through God. Because it's only God. How do we consciously participate in that? So, as the new year begins, we are called to reshape the teachings of New Thought. Now, you've heard me mention decolonizing New Thought and whatnot various times. And the idea is we are deconstructing it. We are breaking it down to its most basic elements and determining what actually works, what is relevant today. See, the relevance in the past was based on, for the most part, privilege of those who were involved in it. In that era, in that time, there were a lot of things that didn't operate the way they do today. In that time, there was still the fight for civil rights. How can New Thought apply to, but we have no overall historical reference of how did the New Thought pioneers help to shift the consciousness around civil rights, the women's suffragist movement, ACT UP, gay liberation movement. Where were we? So today, as I said, we get to reshape, we get to deconstruct New Thought. Remove the old New Thought that served its purpose during its time, but it is no longer relevant. And how do we reconstruct a truly new 21st century New Thought? How do we apply these teachings? How do we embody them? And how do we live God? Old New Thought has been around, been guiding us, been directing us for far long enough. It is time to commit to a grand rising within the movement, the theology, within our own individual lives, and collectively in the world. Now is the time. Breathe. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I will say it first.
If it resonates with you, say it with me on the second go round. The universe is always conspiring for its highest and best. Therefore, it is conspiring for my highest and best. Together. The universe is always conspiring for its highest and best. Therefore, it is conspiring for my highest and best. And so it is. Breathe. Our journal questions and discussion questions for the week. What old New Thought concepts do I still hold on to? That the universe laughs. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, we plan, God laughs. We make plans, God laughs. Same idea. What old New Thought? What old New Thought? Ideas, concepts, etc. do I still hold on to? What am I doing to begin each day with a grand rising? And it doesn't even have to be begin each day. It could be periodically throughout the day. In what way am I pausing and stopping and grand rising? In what way throughout the day am I pausing, grand rising? But for the sake of the question, what am I doing to begin each day with a grand rising? Number 3, what is the best way for you to apply, what is the best way for me to apply spiritual practice to the experiences of failure, pain, grief, loss, etc.? See, if I can't apply spiritual practice and new thought to these things that we have traditionally bypassed, if I cannot and will not be present to them, then the teaching is not relevant. So, what is the best way to apply spiritual practice to the painful and undesirable experiences of failure, physical, emotional, intellectual pain, grief, loss, etc.? Number 4, how do kindness and civic engagement overlap? Kindness, civic engagement. How do they overlap? How do they intersect in your life? And then ask, what is my relationship with being and to being? Because civic engagement can often be done as the to being or the doing. Check off, check, 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 check. 1, 2, testing, testing, check, check. Right? We can very easily confuse it. So pause and extrapolate. Kindness and civic engagement, where do they and how do they intersect? And what is my relationship with being and to being? And then lastly, in what ways are you reshaping God, or in what ways are you invited to reshape God? Woo! That there, right there, that one right there. And how does this reshaping impact your life and the lives of those around you? I'm going to just leave that right there. So if you are ready, let us enter into the space of prayer, the space of the infinite and absolute knowingness of God, knowing that this self is God, and that the self knowing the self knowingness is the way in which I, an individualized incarnation of God, know the self that is the allness of God. Just as I, individually, as an artist, I understand what it means for me to be an artist. But when I expand and recognize what art is and what the art community is and what art does in the world, then the self that knows itself as artist also knows itself as art, embodying itself, sharing itself, creating itself, living itself. And we all get to participate in this. So I know that what is true for me is true for everybody watching right now, everybody joining in right now. It is the truth of all of us. This self-knowingness of God, the self, God, knowing itself as itself, incarnating itself, individualizing itself, breathing itself, being itself. And in the realm of that which is the absolute, there is nothing that God needs to be. There is no what God is supposed to be. God simply bees God. It is being itself. So we breathe and surrender this idea of there is something that we, quote unquote, are meant to be, meant to do. There is what we can choose. So I breathe, and in this moment, I choose to be kindness embodied, creativity embodied, imagination embodied. I choose to be open at the top and open at the bottom. I choose to be, as Dr. Holmes said, I am not religious science, you are. I choose to be the applicable, practical, and relevant demonstration of religious science, science of mind and spirit. I choose that. I don't have to. I'm not meant to, but I get to choose. And in that choice, I choose to be committed. Each of us gets to choose. Breathe. And choosing to rise grandly, moment by moment, day by day. Choose. And as we choose, the law, which doesn't get to choose, says yes. Or maybe the law, that is what it chooses, in that that is its only choice. Yes, yes, yes. So what we have spoken, what we practice, what we demonstrate, what we are aligned with as our mental equivalent, the law says yes. And knowing that the law says yes means the universe is conspiring and creating and demonstrating and manifesting right now that these words are fulfilled, that these words are prayer demonstrating. That means it's already done. Breathe. And so it is. Namaste, much love and blessings. See you over in Zoom, if you're joining us, that is.